What year is this?
2004.
2004. I just caught a glimpse of the list. We better jump in now.
This is gonna be a while.
I remember last week how hard it was to narrow this down to 10.
Oh my god. Well, let's say from the top, WoW isn't on this list.
Oh, right. Thanks for reminding me. World of Warcraft was a game that was released this year. We are not putting on the list because we both are not as familiar with it.
Right. Especially with it in those earliest days. I played it for the first time in like 2006 or 7. It had already been out for a few years. But you know me, I'm not an MMO guy. Even then, at that point in time, in the early stages of WoW, I just couldn't get into it.
Well, it's one of the first games to be put on in the video game Hall of Fame, pretty much, like a video game history. Mm-hmm. It definitely has. I feel like that's a game that transcends something that we can talk about. It transcends time because it's a much different game than it was back then.
Right.
In fact, just this year, they just released the classic version.
Yeah, really weird coincidence in that because it's out now and it's still performing extremely well on Twitch. WoW is consistently one of the top games because of WoW Classic. But it's not on our list because we're not WoW people. But we did want to recognize it from the top.
Absolutely.
And say that it's one of the most deserving games to be on a list like this that isn't on this list.
Yeah, it's a good game. So. I like it. I mean, I used to play it a lot. I don't have time for MMOs anymore.
No, I don't like MMOs. So,
but what's first on our docket today?
First is Burnout 3 Takedown.
Starting off strong, sir.
Starting off strong with maybe the greatest arcade racer of all time.
Mm-hmm. We're probably going to continue going strong this whole list.
Oof, yeah.
Burnout 3.
lot of some of the greatests on this list.
If you have to pick one Burnout game to play, it's this one.
It's this one, absolutely.
This is the first one that lets you take down other opponents and encourage. It kind of takes that crazy taxi approach to driving and lets you be really rough. And
you're incentivized to do that because you get the meter, the takedown meter.
The more you take down people, it puts them further back in the race, and it gives you more boosts. So you continue going further, and it makes this rhythm to the gameplay where you not only need to drive well and it's going super fast, and if you go too fast, you'll go out of control and run into something. Which the crash physics were really awesome to look at in this game. So even when you crashed, you couldn't be mad because it was fun to look at. That's
actually something. That's a good point to bring up because if you play the original Xbox version of this today, it still looks incredible.
Yeah, it still looks great.
I mean, it doesn't look, it's not Forza Horizon 4 or anything, but it looks amazing. It holds up visually. It holds up mechanically and everything. It holds up extremely well. Crash mode is back.
Crash mode is amazing.
Crash mode is fantastic.
One of the most fun things to play multiplayer too, like Score Attack.
And then the new game mode in this one was Road Rage, which was where you had to
continuously take down people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the music soundtrack, by the way.
The soundtrack, it's a lot of alt rock and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
we're probably not gonna be able to put much of that.
Probably not.
Backtracking, but if you like alt rock, this Burnout is usually recognized as one of the best soundtracks. Well,
I do recognize that if Burnout 3 came out today, the music would probably be more of like a hip hop flavor, which I would definitely appreciate far more than alt rock. But for the time, it fit. It was appropriate.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was good. It definitely puts you in the mood.
Can we just go ahead and say that this belongs in must play?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know.
I was debating. I was like, easily fans of that.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine another racing game belonging in must play above this one.
Yeah, I mean, we had to cut F-Zero GX on a list. Was that last week?
And this is the
one where I was like, we can't cut this.
This is the first racing game from the Burnout series we've had on this list.
Yeah,
and probably the last one.
We had to cut some Burnout games.
Yep, for sure.
All right.
Nico Bellic. I don't know, this is a recurring joke.
I heard you back on the block, CJ. We're talking about San Andreas.
Yeah, San Andreas.
San Andreas was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
How big this game was.
It was.
Comparing it to Vice City, which we've talked about on this show before, San Andreas had 3 cities.
Yeah.
Which no Grand Theft Auto game has done since. Not saying that it was more of a quantity over quality here.
For sure.
But you had airplanes. You had parachuting. You could swim. You could go underwater. You could customize your cars. You could have lowriders. The story just went all over the place. In the beginning, it was more like this Boys in the Hood or Juice inspired like hood story.
Right.
And then you kind of go to more of this like Fast and the Furious kind of underground heisting casino style missions later in the game. You go into Area 51, which is called Area 69, but you go in there. There's a jetpack. There's Harrier jets. There's everything you could have ever wanted from Grand Theft Auto was in this game.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of, even to this day, not counting the online stuff from 5, this is kind of the whenever someone imagines what a Grand Theft Auto is or could be, they imagine San Andreas before they imagine any other game. Again, with the caveat that I'm not talking about the online faculties. Like, San Andreas was just the most Second Life of any video game at this time.
That was the next point I want to get to, was it added some sim elements that almost no game has done since, and no Grand Theft Auto game has done since, where, like, your character could get fat.
Yeah, I mean, Red Dead
Redemption
2 had elements of this, but not to the cartoonish degree of this one.
Red Dead Redemption 2 is the only game to do it since, really.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as, like, upfront about it. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, if your Arthur might get kind of husky.
Yeah, he's gonna fill out more.
You weren't gonna get fat unless you were trying. But in this game, it's like, if you go to the pizza shop and you eat a bunch of pizza, you're walking out of there with some pounds.
Right.
On
Yeah.
It was almost, like you said, cartoonish. It was like walk into the pizza shop, walk out with a beer belly. You know. But you can customize your hair. You could customize your clothes. You could wear your gang colors to get more respect.
Yeah.
There's so much content in this game.
Tons of content. And
so
one thing to watch out for is that if you go back and play this in 2019, there are definitely some stereotypical stuff going on. So watch. That's not the kind of thing that would play very well in a GTA 6, but it definitely took time to develop the way they wanted to represent their characters. Also, this was the game that famously had the notorious hot coffee mode or whatever.
Hot coffee was cut content. That was found with hacking tools, and then somehow spurred into this giant political debate about video games, and turned it into an AO rating, and they had to going forward, they had to reship copies that didn't have the cut content, so people couldn't find it, which is kind of bullcrap. That was rated AO because
that's actually the reason that they cut the hot coffee mode was so they didn't receive an AO rating.
Right.
Like, they were that mode.
I don't know why they would have thought they wouldn't have got an AO rating.
Well, I was gonna say the reason why they did it was because they thought that video games were at a point in time where they could compete with movies and television as far as representing real life. And the one thing that video games lacked were, like, sex components to video games. And so this was a very, like, if you think about the ways that movies and TV shows represent sex, it's not as goofy as this game was, but that was their entire motivation for even developing the hot coffee mode.
That mini game, I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I have seen it. It's ridiculous.
It is absolutely, like, that wouldn't even fly today.
It's super dumb.
That would never fly anywhere.
Well, there are some places on Steam it would fly.
Okay, yeah, maybe Steam, but that.
So they cut it. They cut it so they didn't have to get the AO rating, and then modders found it and patched it back in.
But regardless.
It's an incredible game. If you were playing on PS2 like I was and he was, that was not any aspect to your gameplay.
I think this, if you're going to play any Grand Theft Auto old one that's going to stand out still, it's this one.
It's this one.
I wouldn't feel bad throwing it in must play, actually.
I think it goes in must play. I mean, it's
good.
There's not another game like it. The closest thing we have is GTA 5, and even still GTA 5 is such a different thing from this,
It's good, man.
I do think it belongs in must play.
And the soundtrack, by the way.
Yeah.
Still incredible.
It's fantastic.
We got time to jump into this one.
Woo!
Yeah.
It just goes. It goes, man.
I don't think we need to even talk about it. Dude, you can show me this game. There are games.
It's still, I know.
There are games that come out. There's a game that came out yesterday. That
to this day.
I cannot believe.
To this day.
You could tell me that you could show. All right, Half-Life 2. We're talking about Half-Life 2.
We're talking about Half-Life 2.
If you showed me Half-Life 2 today, I would believe you that was a game that was released yesterday.
Yeah, for sure.
It still looks good.
For sure. I mean, whenever this game got demoed in 2003, it was to advertise the face technology and to see the great strides they made from the G-Man face in 1 and the G-Man face in 2.
It's not like, we're not talking like God of War or Red Dead levels
of course not.
Of graphical fidelity, but we're talking.
And at this point in time, though, we were.
We're talking. Dude, the first time I ever saw that cutscene with G-Man, I could not believe it.
Yeah.
And I was playing on an old crappy Dell computer.
It is. I think there's 1 or 2 other games on this list that, at the time, we would have said look as good, but as far as looking good, holding up over time, in 2019, this is the best looking game on this list. Dude, it holds up better than any other game on this list, both in the physics and in the look of the game.
Now, there was an Xbox version of this. not quite as ideal to play as the PC version. The PC version,
but you can get that orange box on Xbox One right now.
Now you can, yes.
You can get the orange box.
That's probably more worth playing.
Absolutely.
But if you had a beefy computer, this thing ran smooth.
Yep.
The level design was incredible. The music was incredible. All the guns feel good.
One thing that I love about Half-Life 2, and that I didn't know how to put into words as as a preteen or whatever, was how almost all the story was told environmentally. And I know environmental storytelling has become kind of a meme in the video game industry, like, oh, a skeleton died next to a toilet, someone wrote on the wall in blood.
There's no cutscenes in this game.
There are no cutscenes.
Everything is in game.
Everything happens around you, so you have to pay attention. And a lot of games are mature in that way, and they require that kind of attention. They require that kind of thoughtfulness. And as like a preteen, this is one of the first ones that showed me that.
You don't see a lot of that these days. Even like BioShock, which we'll probably be talking about in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
BioShock would put those black bars up and focus your attention on things. Or like on like a Gears of War style game where it's like hold this button to focus on the thing
to see the plane flying in, right?
It's like in this game, if you missed it, you missed it.
It's over,
man.
Yeah. G-Man walking across the bridge. I didn't know that until I saw it on Cheat or whatever it was.
Kristen Holt.
Yeah, whatever
and then some great games that we might not talk about in the future that spurred from this. Episode 1 and Episode 2.
We might talk about Episode 2. We'll just have to see how that year is.
Yeah, and also, I mean, dude, I could play this game right now.
And it still feels fantastic.
Still feels great. Still looks good.
This may be my most replayed game of all time. You know me, I don't really replay video games, but I've replayed this one so many times.
Kind of want to pop it in.
Me too. Me too, man. The airboat levels, the airboat levels were like the worst part of that game, but even still,
and they weren't that bad.
They weren't that bad, exactly. Everyone remembers. We haven't even talked about the gravity gun, man.
Oh, well, that's what I want to talk about. Just the physics.
The physics, engine. Yeah.
Remember one of the first puzzles you do has like it's basically a seesaw with like a plank of wood.
You have to get the barrels.
Yeah, you get like cinder blocks or whatever.
To run across the thing.
You have to pick things up. Like it's very early on shows you that physics is a real thing in this game,
right?
Which we never saw to this level.
And the one I was just referencing, you basically have to make a water elevator out of blue barrels that you have to put under this platform to raise it up.
Things would float. Things would
sink,
things would be destroyed if it burned. Like you might have to go underwater and bust some wood open and let some things float to the top. Physics. This is the first time that we saw like a good physics engine.
Yeah.
And still one of the best physics engines.
Yeah, for sure.
In a game.
I mean, did you know, Brandon, that Titanfall 2 was built in Source?
Really?
Yep. Titanfall 2, 2016, one of the best games of the year. That game was built in the Source engine.
And there's a reason why the reason Half-Life 3 is a meme is because of how the legacy of this game.
Yeah. This is one of the most easy must-play games that we've ever discussed.
Easy.
It's a landmark. It's one of the greatest games ever made. Half-Life 2 is brilliant.
For sure.
Brilliant.
For sure. Let's so it's must play.
We
established that. Oh jeez, from one biggie to the next biggie.
How do you feel about dual wielding?
It's fun.
Mixed.
I like it. I'm more of a precision guy. I like a two-handed gun.
One of the things that comes to mind when I think about Halo 2 is the official Xbox magazine. Whenever they finally had the cover story,
I remember this. Yeah.
It was an image of Master Chief dual wielding, and it just said "best game ever" and like big bold text. Obviously, didn't hold up, but at the time, Halo was like one of the greatest games of all time, and still is.
Would you be willing to say? So, of course, we both love Halo a lot. And I think Halo 2 is super important, but most importantly...
Because of the multiplayer?
Because of its multiplayer. I feel like, of all three, this is the weakest single-player one.
Yes, agreed.
Campaign-wise and story-wise.
Of the trilogy.
But they knew after Halo 1 that Halo 2 had to bring that multiplayer to the next level, and it did.
You see that orange strip right there?
Yeah, that only on Xbox Live.
Xbox Live, Halo 2, Xbox Live. That Halo 1 didn't have this, but Halo 2 did. We see another little orange strip there. Yep. That's interesting. But this was the first one, man. Finally, Halo 2 was put online, and you could play with people across the world, and man, was that mind-blowing.
Was it good, too?
It was amazing.
It was good.
It was so
No
good.
longer did you have to have a LAN party in a barn in the middle of the woods. If you lived in Washita Parish, Louisiana, you could play online, and the multiplayer was just insane.
Yeah,
you capture the flag, team deathmatch, deathmatch. The levels were really good in this one. Dual wielding, the weapon variety.
Dual wielding, needlers.
This I remember.
If you want to nuke your friends.
Halo 2, I can't believe how good that game looks for the year that it came out. Just like Half-Life 2.
We made I remember talking to you about this recently.
In Burnout 3.
Yeah, it is mind-blowing to look at Halo 1 and then Halo 2 next to each other. It looks like two different consoles.
Yeah, I can't believe that.
Halo 1 famously was being designed for the Mac before Bill Gates got involved, and he was like, "Hey, Bungie people, why don't y'all come this way?"
Yeah,
and so
they
had to rearrange a whole lot of things to make Halo 1 work on the Xbox. That may be one reason why Halo 2 looks so much better, because they had additional time to optimize it for the system.
Imagine a universe where Bill Gates didn't do that.
Man, Halo 2 would have ended up on the Mac and would have been...
Or Halo may not have happened.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean Halo 2. Halo would have ended up on the Mac, and it would have been the greatest game that no one ever played.
Yep.
Just like Myst or something.
So really, that's all I have to say. I mean, if you've heard us talk about Halo before, gun control, the controlling your weapons was absolutely phenomenal. These best shooting mechanics.
There are games to this day, where whenever you dual wield, it's still just one firing button, and as you press the one firing button, it shoots them in tandem. It was both.
You could have a needler and you could have a pistol. You'd be like, ba ba ba, rah,
exactly.
Ba, 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 rah. Yep.
You had your grenade button became your secondary weapon button, which is brilliant. Like I think about like Left 4 Dead. Whenever you dual wield that, it's just one firing button. Mm-hmm. So it's like bang, 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 bang. There's not a whole lot of control, but this, like Drake and the 99 Dragons, you get control over both hands at the same time.
It doesn't feel good as it does in Halo.
It's just that is exactly the way that I want dual wielding to work in every video game. The same way I said this with Halo 1. I want every grenade to work like the Halo grenade works, but they don't.
Oh man, those grenades are so good. Everything in Halo 2 feels good.
But we need to decide on where this goes. This is hard.
I want to put it in must play, but I feel like the biggest detractor here is
the unfinished story.
Is the story.
It didn't
in the campaign.
Famously, the story wasn't. They didn't. This was an unfinished game when it launched, and the thing that got clipped was the story. They finished all the multiplayer stuff.
This kind of hurts to say.
Yeah.
Are you feeling fans of the series at all?
I was feeling that until I reconsidered and thought about. Oh man. It's not like Halo 2 servers are going to be live. I think fans of the series is right, because if you bust out...
Oh, it hurts.
Well, you can get the Master Chief Collection today and play... Well, I don't know. Fans of the series is right.
Oh, man, it hurts. Let's
If this were...
That really hurts deep.
If this were 2004, this is a must-play game. But because of the online component and how it's not as accessible today, and how...
Like if we put this in my Xbox right now, my original Xbox, and play...
All we're playing is single player.
Yeah. So,
or LAN, of course.
Yeah.
But all we're playing is single player, and the single player was unfinished. Famously, people didn't like Arbiter.
Just put it in there. It hurts. Just put it in, and let's not look back. Oh, it hurts.
An amazing game, but I think that's right.
It will redeem itself later.
Yes, it will, in a big way.
Let's go. Let's go to what's next.
Paper Mario: 1,000 Doors.
Best Paper Mario game there is.
Yeah.
We talked about Paper Mario before.
Yeah.
And I don't think
we talked about a lot of Mario RPGs.
I don't think we put Paper Mario. Wait, did we do Paper Mario? Yeah, we did. We didn't put that in Must Play, did we?
I don't. No, the first one that ended up in Must Play was Superstar Saga.
Right. So this one, take everything with that first Paper Mario and crank it up to 11. Interesting story, much more interesting story. Remember, that was my big complaint with the first one, was that it was the Bowser
kind of by the numbers. Yeah.
This one, totally different. Peach goes to a foreign land, sends you a treasure map, and says, "Hey, I'm looking for this treasure out here in this new kingdom, this new area that we've never been to before." And there's all these characters. I mean, we're out of the Mushroom Kingdom. We're not seeing... I mean, we're still seeing some, like, Koopa Troopas and Goombas and stuff, but, like, there's this really dark feel to the story.
Yeah.
Like, you go into town...
That's what I love.
The first town you go to has a noose hanging in the middle of town square.
Christ.
It's crazy, man. The music in this game looks incredible. This is one of those games that I can't believe it looked as good as it looks. It still looks good.
It holds up, man. That art style, we've talked about this with Jet Set Radio. There are certain art styles that just hold up.
Man, it looks really good. It looks so much better than... It holds up so much better than the 64 version does. Yeah. I think it even ran at 60 FPS, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The badge system that we talked about before is here, and they just kind of expanded on it a little bit, but giving you more options for your badges. The gameplay worked pretty much the same, except for this time when you went into battles, it was like you were on a stage, and there were people in the audience, and everything you did would win the audience over, and sometimes they'd throw you things or throw things at you, depending if you were doing good or bad. So landing that tactile input that we had talked about before, like swinging the hammer or timing your jumps or whatever, that all was in here as well. And then take the party members in this one and make them way more unique, give them some more backstory. Basically, everything you wanted to see in a sequel was here. It was really, really good, and I'm gonna throw it must play if you allow it.
Yeah, sure.
It's really good, dude. There's a reason why there's a there were just the other day. Remastered The Thousand Year Door was trending on Twitter.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It's a really great game.
Yeah.
It's so good, man. Side quests, main quests, and dude, it's just like I love how dark this game gets.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's really, really good, man.
All right, must play.
Yeah.
You know, whenever we were talking about Gamepad Pass and we were talking about what it was going to be and how we were going to do Let's Play shows, that was one of the ones that we were talking about firstly. No, Thousand Year Door specifically.
Okay.
That was one of the first ones that we talked about because we were talking about like what we could do, and I was like, I was using that as an attempt to convince you to do this.
That's a long game.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, we could play Thousand Year Door. I've never played it. Anyway, must play.
Ooh, it's good. Ratchet and Clank, up
your arsenal, man.
We talked about going commando last episode.
We did, yeah. I feel giddy talking about these games.
All right, once again, this is another one of those games where it was just like the evolution of Ratchet 1 to Up Your Arsenal was like Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard.
Right.
It's crazy, dude. Like this was peak. Like take all those gun evolutions we were talking about, ramp it up to where it's like
you have 5 in this one. Every gun has 5 evolutions in this game.
Yeah, it has 5. You can level up 5 times, and the last one it completely changes the gun.
Yes, it's what we were talking about the lava gun. The last one. This is the one where it turns into the
You can
ice
get
gun.
guns from the. If you had a save file from the original one, you could carry it over. Oh, does it feel good? Remembering it?
Yes.
Does it feel good? There was this was just like where it got mastered. The only thing I can think.
Oh, hang on! Before you mention that, this is the one where you had the firing button was R1.
We talked about
instead of circle.
Yeah, we talked
so
about
you could
that last
strafe
time.
and turn the camera and shoot it all at the same time, which every like 3D shooting game today uses that system. Anyway.
Oh, the armor system was.
Armor system, yes.
The armors all look good. The guns were all good. I don't think there's a gun in this game that I didn't like to use.
This is the one that had the rift gun where you shoot a black hole.
Yes.
Oh my god!
And then when you level it up all the way, it turns into an electric black hole
that
shocks things, and anything that it touches gets sucked in.
Yes. And one of the upgrades along the way is if you shoot multiple ones in a small area, they would all combine into one huge one.
It was crazy the gunplay. And have you ever played a game before where you had like a hot bar if you could change your weapons, and you had like I don't know a choice of almost a dozen, and you couldn't fit all the ones you like in the hot bar?
Yes.
That's this game.
Yeah.
Let me try to think of a negative because there's really not much I can think of. The only negative I can think of is that there was a lot of levels or worlds that you went to that were more just linear and backtracking than just wide open like they were in Going Commando. But that's more of a let's increase the quality of the level instead of the quantity of the level you're getting. So you didn't have much room for going off the beaten path and exploring and finding those collectibles. That's the only thing I can think of. And of course, there was online in this game, which was not very good. Don't play that.
It has the online.
But it was there.
I played it one time ever just to try it out. Surprisingly, the online has defenders online, and people are like it was underrated. I can't speak to that. I only ever played it once.
Alright.
But I do want to say. This one does have the big Clank mission. I think it has one of those. It does have a couple flying missions. We talked about it last week. I don't like either of those.
Secret Agent Clank.
But the one thing that I think this game does that I love, we talked about it last time, Ratchet & Clank 1 had the hover boards. Ratchet & Clank 2 had the hover bikes. Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal got rid of the racing games altogether and gave you the Quark.
The Captain Quark minigames.
Captain Quark minigames.
Side-scrollers.
Dude, those were so good.
They were good.
As just 2D action platformers.
And they had hidden collectibles.
They were so good, man. They did, yeah.
There's a lot of content in this game.
So much content. Yeah, it had a new game plus. It had all the armor, all the gun upgrades. This really feels like the pinnacle of Ratchet & Clank.
I used to absolutely love the fact that if you had old save data, it would carry over.
Yes.
Man, there was no
They
better
did.
feeling.
I don't know if we mentioned that in last week's episode, but they did that in 2 as well.
They did do that, but it only carried over some of those like mediocre guns from the first one.
And notably, those guns got they got aged out.
Yeah, they pretty much got clipped for this one. I don't think there's any original ones in this one.
I can't remember that either, but what I do remember is that in Ratchet Clank Going Commando, as you progress through the game, the Ratchet Clank 1 weapons that you got became unusable.
Yeah, they were just boring.
Yeah, well,
they did. I don't think they got upgrades like they did in this one.
They didn't get upgrades. That's exactly right.
In this one, the guns from Going Commando got upgrades that were different from the last one.
Yep,
so,
they expanded it.
The one we talked about was like the lava gun that turned into the meteor gun. Mm-hmm. In this one, it was the lava gun turned into the liquid nitrogen gun.
Yeah, nitrogen.
Which is one of my favorite guns in the game. I love that thing.
I want to put this in must play, man.
I used to pull the trigger and spin in circles. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Throw it in must play. And if you wanted to put it anywhere else, we would be wrestling. We can tackle this next one really quick.
Oh man, Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay. So this was a really tough one for me personally because
I had
to decide between this and Ninja Gaiden. Ultimately, I went with this because
I think you made the right choice.
I think so too. So let's talk about Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay. This is this may be the best licensed game on this list, and I say that knowingly.
Yeah, it's now. Yeah, I think we're pretty comfortable to say that. This is back when movie games were good. Movie adaptations and video games were good. And this had nothing to do with. It was just in the universe of.
No, that's not true. This was a prequel.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, this was a prequel to the first one. This told you all about how the end of this game leads into the beginning of Pitch Black.
I didn't know that.
This game ends with you getting onto the ship that ends up crash landing on that planet in Pitch Black. This game takes place a couple days before Pitch Black.
So if you're a Riddick fan, this is a big deal.
Which, if you're a Riddick fan today, who is out there? But at this point in time, man, the only two Riddick properties we had were Pitch Black and Escape from Butcher Bay, and those two properties together, those two pieces of media, made this franchise seem like it was going to be really good. Yeah. And then the Riddick sequel came out, and it sucked.
I loved the original Riddick movie.
So let's talk about the game, because this was a
voice acting by Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel, yep,
he's here.
This was a first-person stealth action game, I guess. It had melee combat, which the melee combat in this game.
Got the ulocks.
Oh yeah, for sure. The melee combat in this game was better than any other melee combat that had been on this console generation and going forward. If you look at melee combat, even in Oblivion and Skyrim, this did it better. It just had better flow.
Oh, dude, Oblivion's first person hand to hand.
It was So the hand-to-hand in this game actually had
sound like Al Pacino.
It actually had a bunch of squash and stretch animation. It just felt really good. It had a lot of crunch and impact.
Yeah.
And
there's games today that still don't do hand-to-hand.
Exactly.
Well.
Yes. And in this game, it was good. This was another one of those games similar to Splinter Cell, where after you took out a guard or something, you had to scoot him into the shadows so that he wouldn't be found.
How did you feel about the guns?
The guns are pretty good, but I love stealth stuff, so I played this as a stealth game.
Okay.
I do want to say, though, one of the things that was most shocking to me as a person, I didn't really know what this game was going into it. There are hub areas where you go talk to NPCs, that's not what this game was purported to be. So when I got into that game, and I love good dialogue in games, and I'm just walking around talking to these guards and talking to these other jailbirds and stuff, I was just this game is insane.
I'm gonna kill you with this coffee cup.
It's so good, man. But I think the one negative that I think a fair negative to add is that this game is it's very short. It's like a 7-hour campaign or so. That's just a guess even.
I'm going to leave the placement to you. You have much more experience than I do, but I do remember how important this game was.
I think because of the genre, it's stealth action, and there is some horror elements to it. It's surprisingly similar to, I think we actually clipped Doom 3 from this year, but it has some sections where you're fighting monsters, mutants. That is scary and harrowing in the way that Doom 3 was. And I think because of those areas, and because it's very much a stealth game, it belongs in fans of the genre.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that.
I don't think that everyone is going to appreciate the horror aspects and the stealth aspects. But if you took the horror out, this game wouldn't be as good. Does this make sense? If you took the horror elements out of this game, it wouldn't be as good as it is. But I think those elements detract it from being able to appeal to a wide audience.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I think that's the right spot. That's what I was feeling.
I think I've beaten this game twice. This is a really good game.
That's good. Fans of the genre.
Another licensed game.
SpiderMan 2.
Yeah.
I think because of recent events, it's going to change our placement from what it normally would have been.
I completely agree.
So Spider-Man
and
PS4 came out.
Yes, that was kind of the conversation that happened around Spider-Man PS4.
I have something I want to get off my chest real quick.
Okay. Get off your breast.
Everyone says Spider-Man 2 is the last good Spider-Man game we had.
No, that's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Everyone was like, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 2. There's a lot of Spider-Man games.
Web of Shadows?
Web of Shadows. There was the one where you played as all the different Spider-Man. The thing was...
Shattered Dimensions?
No Spider-Man game had the impact that Spider-Man 2 had with the actual physics system of swinging.
Yeah.
The anchor points, actually having to use webs. Like, if you're not just going to shoot a web in the air and just move.
Right.
There was a lot
Ultimate Spider-Man was also the one I was thinking.
Ultimate
Spider-Man and Web of Shadows were really good games.
A lot of people don't like they're like, oh yeah, every Spider-Man game that comes out is just not as good as Spider-Man 2. Have you gone back and played Spider-Man 2?
Oh, no, but I know that it doesn't hold up.
Dude, I went back and played Spider-Man 2 on my GameCube. Holy moly. It is not as crazy as people remember it being, especially if we're talking about, if we're comparing this to the PS4 version that got released last year.
Yeah.
The Insomniac interpretation of Spider-Man. And that, with that being on the market now, and talking about this game now, I know we're trying our best to talk about it, how it was back then.
And how it holds up now.
How it holds up now.
Yeah.
It hurts to say. Now let me get into the gameplay a little bit. Of course, you got free roam gameplay. You have little side activity you can do. Most of it just boils down to stopping a car with some thieves.
Getting a balloon, taking a pizza.
Getting the balloon for the kid.
Hey, the pizza mission music, very good.
On point. That's some good stuff.
Yeah.
And as a movie adaptation, it was really good because I really appreciate. I think Tobey Maguire even did the.
Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst was also. She reprised her role. I think Alfred Molina was also Doc Ock. Like, yeah, I think they had a full cast.
So like it was all good, and I mean it had to take some creative liberties for not just being the movie by itself. Like Mysterio shows up, the other characters show up, and they had
the big carnival thing.
They had to take a lot of creative liberties here
to make it a game,
to make it an actual game that was worthwhile playing, and they did a great job. I think they did a great job on all that stuff. The little Peter Parker segments when you're walking into the Daily Bugle. Bruce Campbell would talk to you the whole time.
He was the narrator.
He was the narrator before the narrator in Crackdown.
Yeah.
It was really good for the time, and I that was one of the best games that year. It's on this list for a reason. But
absolutely.
I think it cannot go on must play.
I don't think so.
Because of it doesn't stand the test of time, especially now. There's no reason to play this over the one on PS4.
I would agree with that.
Unless you just want the nostalgia.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think that there is like a video game history requirement to this game, which is to say this was the first real superhero game in an open world. And it was the first game to where, talking about Spider-Man games, it was the first Spider-Man game to where the web physics actually made sense. When you were swinging, you were attaching to bridges and light poles and buildings.
And the first time ever that a superhero game was on this caliber.
Yeah, I think so. Before
it's on this list.
Before this, it was Spider-Man PS1, and that ended up.
And that may have been more of our nostalgia, actually.
Maybe so. I do not pretend to think that Spider-Man PS1 stands the test of time, but it was great at the time.
Good. I liked it.
I think.
I liked talking about that game.
Yeah, that's a good game. I think this is a fans of the series game.
I think you're right. I think the only way we could put it in fans of the genre is if we put it as like if you like superhero games.
As a Spider-Man.
But I think if you're a Spider-Man fan and you liked Spider-Man PS4 and you want more and you want to see where that came from, where their inspiration came from, this is the game to play. I don't feel bad putting it there. I can agree. But man, is that a fun game.
It's a fantastic game. It was an amazing game.
I would rather play that than Hulk Ultimate Destruction.
Really?
I think so.
I don't think that you would have said that like 6 months ago.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Who knows? There might be moments in this game. I do remember the boss fight against Doc Ock in that small warehouse sucking. I remember that.
Yeah. Man, I put a lot of hours into that game because that came at a point in time where I didn't have a lot of games for my PS2, so I just played a ton of that one.
Yep.
Fans of the series.
All right, this next one's all you, man. I have nothing I can speak on this except for I played the last one and I can't wait to hear from you. Explain to me. Use me as the audience to explain to me how this was a good sequel to KOTOR 1.
So in almost every way, this game is better.
Are there characters as cool as Canderous?
Some of the best characters of KOTOR 1 carry over.
Canderous?
I don't want to say, dude. I don't want to say, but some of the best and fan favorite characters. And let me put it this way: these are fan favorite characters in 2004, 1 year separated from 2003.
Is this on Steam?
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure it's on Steam.
What is that?
Oh, it's on your desktop.
Son, I've got KOTOR 2, I got Fallout New Vegas, and Planescape Torment. You know who worked on all three of those? Chris motherfucking Avallone. One of the greatest writers in video game history, and he worked on Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. This was Obsidian's first game. Woo! Their first game. So after the liquidation of Black Isle Studios, which was the studio that made Planescape Torment, that made Fallout 1 and 2, there was a lot of money issues, and they closed that studio down, and they opened up Obsidian, and their very first game was a licensed game, and it was a follow-up to Knights of the Old Republic 1, and in every way...
This is where they kind of started with their flavor of... hey, there's a successful game. We're going to do a spin-off or a sequel to it.
And it's going to be better.
And it's going to be better.
in most ways.
And maybe a little glitchier.
And maybe, well, that's the one thing about this game, dude.
I figured.
That's the one thing about this game is that it's hard to talk about. So there are some moments when you're in combat in this game. So we've been playing KOTOR 1 on the Xbox One, and it runs beautifully. Mm-hmm. There's not been a single frame rate drop or issue or anything like that. This game, when you play certain battle areas when things are kind of hairy, the frame rate drops into the tens. It drops into the single digits even.
That's not good.
The frame rate, there are a lot of frame rate drips in combat.
I'm assuming we're talking about the Xbox version.
This is true of Xbox and the PC version.
Okay. The PC version come out the same year? I can't remember.
Yeah, they released simultaneously. Also, and this is honestly the biggest problem about this game. Everything that I'm going to say about this game in a moment is going to be just absolute gushingly positive, but this is the biggest issue. This, similar to Halo 2, the story wasn't finished. They didn't get to tell the entire story.
That sucks.
Which modders, also talking about San Andreas, so the mission was still in the source code. Modders found it, and they created a version of this game that has that in it.
That's cool.
There's an entire chapter of the game that has been... This version of KOTOR 2 that you see on my desktop has that in there.
That's so cool.
So you can get the full version of Knights of the Old Republic 2, sans all the frame rate drips if you have the right mods, and with the cut content on PC today.
But for today's discussion, we have to talk about it.
I just want to put that out there. If someone's making a purchasing decision, you can do that right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the time, huge frame rate drops, and the story wasn't finished. I will say, though, we were talking a minute ago about Chris Avallone and the impact of Obsidian and the impact of Black Isle Studios. This game has one of the greatest video game antagonists of all time. So, did you play, this is going to be a weird comparison. Did you play Arkham Knight, the PS4 one?
No.
Okay, so in that game, Batman has Joker in his head the entire time, and Joker is taunting him.
Right.
He's taunting him throughout the game. This game does a similar thing. Not exactly. I don't want you to imagine that there are Sith.
The Joker's not in this game.
The Joker's not in this game, and I don't even want you to think that the Sith are talking to your mind. It's nothing like that. But in a similar way, in which Arkham Knight, the villain is thrust in the hero's face, the villain of Knights of the Old Republic 2 is constantly talking to you. You have a persistent relationship with the villain.
Presumably.
I'm just not gonna say. I'm not gonna say because this game is deserving to be played. But what that does, the reason I'm bringing that up is what that does is by the end of the game, when you have your climactic final battle,
you're ready to face this person.
You're ready to face, but it's really difficult. What this person has been telling me this entire time is kind of true, but they're really evil. You know, it's almost that Thanos. Remember early this year, everybody was like, "Oh, Thanos was right. Oh, Thanos was right." That became the meme online. I was like, KOTOR 2 did this in 2004. Thanos was right in KOTOR 2. You know what I mean?
Thanos confirmed.
Dude, and so I don't... Man, I feel very strongly that this is the better Knights of the Old Republic 2. It's the greatest Star Wars game ever made, but I totally understand that the technical issues do hold it back in some big ways, and that to me is a huge bummer. That to me is devastating. One really cool thing about Knights of the Old Republic 2, a couple things, and then we'll move on. One, the music was better.
That's what I was about to ask you.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you if the music was better and environments.
The music was more present. So in Knights of the Old Republic 1, it felt like it was Jeremy Soule, but it felt like they were just trying to do John Williams, right?
Yeah.
It felt like they were just trying to, hey, let's just go for Star Wars feels.
Yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic 2 is more like, hey, let's do Star Wars, but if Star Wars took place in Gotham City or something. I'm making some Batman comparisons. I didn't plan to do this, but it's just happening. It's
sure you didn't.
It's just like the Knights of the Old Republic 2 is just a really dark and oppressive game, and that darkness sits over the entire thing, which makes the music really moody. It makes the music really like, oh man, bad stuff's going on, but we just got to do our duty. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But the environments I want to talk about, not only like the scenery, but how the maps are laid out. Is that any different in this one? Because in the first one, there's just a lot of corridors and hallways, and it's really like that level design gets repeated a lot.
So part of the frame rate drops and part of the tech issues result from having bigger, more open spaces where bigger battles take place. So it's like, you know, it's a double-edged sword, right? You have smaller areas with fewer like explosive battles taking place, but it runs better.
Maybe that's telling of the design choices of the first one. Exactly.
So that it's interesting. The music is definitely better. I like the overall tone of the game being a darker, more oppressive, more like KOTOR 1 is more typically Star Wars stuff. Like, hey, it's good versus evil, and there's some nuance in there. It makes it interesting. KOTOR 2 is just like, everything is bad, and we got to figure out a way out of it. Man, one other really cool thing about the game is that, and the combat is pretty much exactly the same, except for one great difference. When you become a Jedi, you have all the different lightsaber forms. I don't know if you know this in Star Wars mythology, but there are different lightsaber forms, and like it starts at 1 and goes to 8.
I forget the ones you get the choices of in the first one. But that just changes like your statistics.
Yes, it just changes stats. In this one, you can switch through them on the fly.
That's so
as
cool.
You're playing the game, you can switch to different lightsaber forms, which benefits you in certain. If you have multiple Sith around you and you have to manage multiple different bad guys, you might want to use a different lightsaber form. If you're fighting one big bad guy, maybe you want to use a certain lightsaber form. Also, this had class specializations, which the first one did not have. So once you maxed out areas in your class, you got certain benefits that the first one just didn't have. And that is kind of the lineage of Black Isle Studios, right? This is the most RPG of this series.
Yeah, everything you're saying after playing the first one currently, and everything that I have issues with, or I don't say issues, criticisms of, it sounds like most of them got fixed here.
Yes, I completely agree. I think anyone that takes like RPG seriously and likes good writing in video games, for them this is a must play. But because it has those problems, because it has tech issues, I think this has to go in fans of the genre.
If that's, I think it's more your call than it is mine.
Fans of the genre being people who like that BioWare style
and
RPG.
To be honest with you, normally, like if someone had, if I was alone here and then I had 1,000 people saying, "Hey, where do you put this?" I would have just chunked it in must play, not knowingly. But
yeah, I would love for that. It's like with you and like Jack too. I would love to put it there, and if this were a personal list, I would. But I recognize that the tech issues.
It hurts, man.
The tech issues are a problem, and again, the PC version with mods and with that content patched in make this game one of the greatest video games I've ever played. Also, one thing I wanted to say about this: if you do things right, it's very hard. But if you do things the right way, you can make everyone in your party a Jedi.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All
Fans
right.
of the genre.
That was hard, man.
It was hard.
That was hard. But let's move on. Hey, that's one fun thing about this project.
But the Minish Cap is a joy. Woo! Man, the Minish Cap.
All right, a lot of people say Link's Awakening is the best portable game. I think that a lot of people gloss over Minish Cap.
They do, man. People forget about this because it launched the same year as the DS. That's the problem.
Minish Cap is it does a lot of really cool stuff with perspective, and graphically it does a lot of cool stuff with like just graphics techniques, like that first dungeon with the barrel that rolls and all that stuff.
Yes.
But you getting shrunk down to the size of a Minish. A Minish, which is a little people.
It's a thumb man.
Like you're the size of a bug walking around.
Literally, they're giant grass blades and
I thought one of the most creative, coolest things about this game was when I got through the first dungeon, and I'm fighting one of the most basic, easy enemies to kill, but I'm so tiny, it's turned into a boss.
He's a monster, dude.
I thought it was so cool that they're able to do that with some of these boss characters. If you've played a Zelda game, a top-down Zelda game, you kind of know what to expect here as far as you gotta go to different dungeons, you get items, they help you get through the dungeons, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But they also took that Link's Awakening mechanic of being able to switch out A and B with whatever item you want. Whether it be a sword, you can not have a sword out if you want. You can just have, like, the cape that lets you jump, or the little thing that sucks up the stuff, or whatever. The gust jar, or whatever.
Yeah. So this is kind of in the lineage of Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, a Twilight Princess, which is to say that Link goes through multiple not zones, dimensions almost. He goes through different forms of interacting with the world. In Link to the Past, it's the Dark World. In Ocarina of Time, it's the future. Twilight Princess, it's the Twilight area. And this one, it's Tiny Zone.
You turn tiny, and you just go and re-explore places you've been. We're like, oh man, that crack in the wall. I should probably go check that out.
It requires they make you solve puzzles through that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to get small to do this thing, and then get big to fix it and advance through the puzzles. This is a brilliant game, and I've said this to you 100 times. I've said it on Gamepad Pass. It's the last pixel art Zelda.
And it's good.
And it's been
really
15 years.
The pixel art's really good, man.
It's so good. The
music's really good.
It's so good.
Especially, it's hard to have good. It was hard to have good music on the Game Boy Advance because that sound chip can only output so much. But they did a great job. I think, was this Capcom produced or Capcom developed? I can't remember. Capcom was involved with this game.
Yeah, they were.
And it was really interesting to see how they would work on a Zelda game. They don't normally.
So Capcom and Flagship developed this.
So Capcom helped develop it, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And man, maybe Capcom should make some more Zelda games. I don't know.
So Flagship is like a co-studio between Capcom, Nintendo, and Sega. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, that's cool. They look like they did a lot of Game Boy and portable games.
So the thing that I've said to you in the past, man, is that I want to see this game come back as like a Link's Awakening remake, but I want to see it developed not by Capcom, not by Flagship, which Flagship they may be gone, who knows, but by like the Owlboy developers because they are some of the preeminent pixel artists in the world, and man, do I want to see that game come back, dude. I absolutely look at this pixel art.
Can we just throw it in must play real quick?
We can absolutely throw it in must play.
Let's throw it there because that's exactly where it goes. But if you love Zelda games, for sure you got to play this one. I'm surprised they haven't re-released this. They may have re-released it on Wii U. I can't remember, but they need to do just like on Switch how they've been doing NES and SNES games and all that.
Yes.
They just need to do it with Game Boy. They just need to do it with every Nintendo system. But Minish Cap, really, really good. I love that game. I'm hearing the music in my head.
So that's the last handheld Zelda I played because I didn't play Spirit Tracks. I didn't play. And
it's all right. You should keep that as the last one you played.
I really want pixel art.
I don't think those other games are gonna be making these lists.
I really want pixel art Zelda to come back, Brandon. So bad.
But hey, look, we're running out of time, so we gotta say real quick, what would you change on this list? This is really hard. Every time we leave these, we have to go and
it feels
basically go pass through Congress the next
murder
10
our
games.
kids. Yeah.
Let us know if there's a game we didn't talk about, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks so much for watching.